How's it going, everybody? Wanted to give a demo today for those of you with 80s through 1995 Chevy vans of this OBD1 USB adapter that lets you data log. And that'll really come in handy if you have any drivability problems or stalling or intermittent problems but no check engine light on. Another cool feature you have on here is that it gives you a digital tachometer. It has the 12-pin OBD1 GM aldl connection of this era. It has a normal USB connection, so you can hook it up to a laptop with Tuner Pro RT, or you can use one of these adapters so you can use it on your phone or tablet with the app aldl Droid, which is about $18. One sensor you can easily test on here without the engine running is your throttle position sensor. With the key in the on position, gradually push the pedal down to the floor and make sure that the percentage smoothly goes up to 100%. If at any point it spikes or goes back down to 0, that's a sign you could have a bad throttle position sensor, or the wiring to it could be messed up. Or it could be a sign you have the wrong definition file, so make sure you have the right one for your vehicle. Now with the engine off but key on, you'll get a reading from the map sensor of your current barometric pressure. Another sensor that's really important to check is your coolant temperature sensor. It's responsible for giving you the right air-fuel ratio. Letting the van sit overnight, the temperature should be right around ambient outside temperature. Now here you'll notice two different coolant and engine temperature readings. It's not that they're two sensors and one's reading off. It's both the same reading. It's just the engine temperature one is in Fahrenheit and the coolant one's in Celsius. Now that it's gone past 200 degrees, it should start dropping because the thermostat's opened. Because this is a 190 degree or 195 degree thermostat. And now it shows that it's reached closed loop. So what we should see here to check the O2 sensor is it should constantly be switching under 500 and over 500, which is exactly what it's doing. Now on some vans, the computer is a little slower in transmitting, so it might actually possibly switch more times than it shows. So just because it doesn't show that it's constantly switching doesn't mean it actually isn't. You can also check here and it'll tell you whether it's running rich and lean. You should constantly see it switching back and forth. That shows that it's working right. One thing that's handy you have on here is your vehicle speed sensor. If you have any sort of speedometer issues where it's not reading at all or it's reading off, you can verify to see if it's an issue with the speed sensor itself or if it's a problem with the speedometer. Doesn't mean that what the speed sensor reads is accurate, especially if you have larger wheels or tires. You can at least see if your speedometer matches your speed sensor. This will also show you the current brake switch status. If you're having any problems shifting out of park or no brake lights, you can check to make sure that the computer is sensing your brake pedal being pressed. If you push the brake and it still says off, then there's probably something wrong with the wiring or the actual brake switch itself. Above that, you also have the AC request status. If you're having any sort of AC compressor issues where it's not kicking on, you can find out if it's receiving at least the request to turn on by putting it to the max or normal AC mode, turning the vent on, and you should see it say yes. If it still says no, then it could mean that it either has got no Freon in it, or the wiring from here to the computer is bad, or the actual switch itself is bad. Now this is where it'll show you the exact check engine code you have if you have one. Another van I was working on actually showed a code even though no check engine light was showing on the dash. You also get your EGR counts. Another thing you can check on here is your idle air control valve motor position and see if it's where it wants to be. If it's far off from the desired motor position, then there might be something wrong. Another thing to check your idle speed, you have here your desired idle RPM, and at the top is your tachometer. So you can try to compare the two to make sure that the engine's running where the computer wants it. Another thing I read on this is if the motor position is under 10, it could be a sign you have a vacuum leak. Two other readings you'll see is knock counts and knock retard. 22 counts basically means that what the knock sensor is picking up, it doesn't consider knock. If it does start hearing knock, it'll actually start putting the degrees of timing that it's pulling under knock retard. Two other readings you'll see is battery voltage and fuel pump voltage. Under 9.5 volts, the engine will run in low voltage mode, which means it'll start running under a different sort of parameters that are not ideal. As we turn the key to on, you'll see the fuel pump voltage go up, which means the pump's priming. And then when the pump shuts off, it'll go down to 0. Pretty happy with it. They do have a Bluetooth version and a Bluetooth plus USB version, but this one's just the USB version. Shout out to 1320 Electronics. John was awesome. He helped get me the definition file I needed for another van I'm working on. The Tuner Pro RT software is free to use. There is a $38 registration donation you can do, but all you have to do if you don't register is you just have to wait for a 10-second countdown at the beginning. Then when you hit continue, you have all the features of the registered version. Now to use this software, you have to find what's called a definition file for your van. So you would go to the tunerpro.net website, go to downloads, go to definitions, and go down to the General Motors section. Down here, if you have, for instance, a 1995 Chevy van with a 350, you would go here, save it, you can give it a special name, go to the Tuner Pro app, go to acquisition, go to load definition file, go to where you downloaded it, and then click the button. And then it'll load everything. If it doesn't load, you can go to show data list here to bring up this list. And then you have 3 different things you can go into to change what it's showing. And then you have your dashboard right here, which you can also change which thing shows.